Today's High Performance Podcast is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. It's where you'll find our incredible short courses. In under 60 minutes, you'll grow all the key skills, covering specific areas like how to hire an assistant, grow a team, to list better properties, to grow better fees, and to master your pipeline. Welcome to High Performance, the podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Alexander Phillips. Alex, this is the best time of the year for real estate agents. We like to call it the really important focus time. It's the spring selling season. What is the strategies that an agent's got to get in place to make this a phenomenal spring? When you start to think about August, September, and October, and November, how do you make sure that you've got a really good quality launch pad, and then what do you do to maintain that momentum? Because it's a long 12 to 16 weeks here for agents to be able to maintain that level of energy and momentum in a market.
Yeah, as long as you're fresh, you've got a good lifestyle, you've got a really good plan in place. You've really got 12 to 15 selling weeks, ahead of you. So you got to make sure that you've got a really good plan in place. But that should have started back in May and June with getting those vendors progress, having good dialogue on why they sell now, sell in August, where the stock levels are low, go buy when the stock levels are high, sell high, buy low, having really good conversations and making sure that you've got a really good list that you can progress in front of you. That if you don't have that, those vendors are pushed back into next year, and you've got a quiet spring, and then there goes a year. So you've got to be really laser focused on making sure that you're ramping up as many listing appointments, but also progressing those vendors into selling right now.
You're really good about getting a bit of a narrative. So it might be a forecast about what's happening in market, reading about something that's happening on the international share market, having a conversation of why go now. So August, your theme is that usually there's a lot more listings on in late September and October. So that might mean that literally there's a lot more competing homes for a shallower buyer pool. Sometimes you're saying, okay, great. When you get to October, it's a better time to sell than maybe November. When you get to November, get it done before we get to December. When we're in early December, I wouldn't do it now. I'd be launching in January. You've got those themes. How often do you look at adjusting the theme? Are you looking at it on a day-by-day basis? Hey, this isn't working and now I need to shift? Or are you very specific about what you say in specific months?
Very specific about what we say in specific months, because the ebbs and flows of the market is definitely driven mainly by the holidays. There's not so much a seasonality with us. It's more about holidays and making sure that you're doing it in blocks either side of those holidays. That's why our biggest months February or August, straight after a big holiday. Then then the back end of a holiday like a May is one of our biggest months, and then October, November, December pretty quiet because we're gearing up for next year. So it's like we've worked out when the best time is to sell for vendors, where you get the best prices, where you get the highest volume of listings, and we work around that a year in advance.
So a little bit controversial, but I've still got agents that will still try to list something and sell something in December, and I'm pretty much of the opinion that once you get to Melbourne Cup, I like to have a couple of days off around that, because I think it's a really good psychological reset where you can take the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not many people would notice. Then after that, what you're doing is you're really listing for the following year, and you've got a bit of a discipline on that. You usually have a bit of a cut-off date where you say after this date, it really should be next year.
Yeah.
How important is it for agents to get like that? Because what you see is that sometimes they get tired, they come into December, then they have a whole January off, and then they get to February and they lose momentum, and then Easter's earlier or later. And so is it really clear that you're forecasting and planning well and truly ahead of that time frame to go, hey, this is going to be an early January this year, or this one's maybe a slightly later January, but I've got to make sure I've got my momentum planned.
Yeah, and the thing is, real estate, you're easily forgotten. There's no loyalty.
Yes.
The vendor's always going to go with who's got the most market share, who's the most energetic. If you're off, or you're doing your holidays wrong time of year, you're not going to be on that short list for that potential vendor. And
so that's a really important part. In terms of the momentum piece, do you start to get yourself in a position that you work really hard, but you've got very clear deadlines, and so you say to your wife, hey Bridge, I'm going to be home at circa 6 p.m. each night if I can on these nights throughout the week, to make sure that you've got consistency so you don't burn relationships or put pressure in alternate areas?
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of discipline though, when the phone continues to ring and you've got a much higher volume of transactions and vendors and potential sellers getting it there. Is it important to make sure that your team holidayed and that you've got them at the full level of energy for when the market's at its full level of momentum?
Yeah, 100%. One of the most important things you can do.
It's a hard thing for people to get the discipline to make sure they've got a target
when you head into August, do you have a target, and is that based on the number of listings, the number of sales, or the number of opens on a Saturday?
It's based on what we did last August, so we've got to beat that, which is always like, because our months are always so consistent.
Yeah.
Because we do everything the same every year. Like, it's like we've got that. I think we did like 150 million last August, which is a huge month. So we've got to, like, that's pretty daunting to try and beat that, but that's our goal.
So the most important foundational idea, get your rhythm and stick to it.